Hello there, it's Carrie Rhodes here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's card making video, I am making 3 different backgrounds using Wow embossing powders. It is so fun to make your own backgrounds and pretty cool to do with these party popper amazing embossing powders that have just been released by Wow. You can see it is colored powder with some like floating bits in it. They're gold and white and amazing. They make the coolest embossed images. So I will be using some embossing ink that is ultra slow drying from Wow, and I am using their embossing tool, which has a high and low setting. So for background number 1, I'm going to take that embossing stamp pad and just drag it directly onto my paper. I'm doing 3 different swatches, and I'll do each separately, one at a time. So I'm dumping on that poppin' pink powder, and I love this look. I like it where it doesn't have full coverage. Some of the white of the paper shows through. That's really cool. Now this one didn't get too much of those chunky bits in it, but it's still, you can see them on the edges and it looks really cool. Now I'm going to go over the center of this. I'm swiping it 3 times for each of the 3 different panels I'm doing. This time I'm being careful to dump it on the paper and then let it slide off, and then I got more of the chunky bits in there, and you can see the gold and the white in there. It is amazing and gorgeous powder, and I think it looks so cool as a background. Alright, so for the last one, I'm using the Poppin' Blue. It's really hard for me to decide which of these 3 powders is my favorite, which is totally fine because you get all 3. It comes in the trio, so that's helpful. You don't have to decide. All right, so this one overlapped the yellow a little bit, and I got like a little bit of green in there. I thought that was really cool. But just look at those floating gold and white flecks in there. They're bigger pieces, like a chunkier powder. All right, so now I'm using this diamond stencil to do a double stenciling background. So I'm just taping that in place. I have an A2 size card front here, and I'm going to take my embossing pad, and I found the technique of like pouncing it on there worked much better. I just want to make sure I'm getting ink well pressed onto my paper through this stencil. So remove that and now add on the embossing powder. So I'm going to use the popping pink for the first pass and just dump that on, tapping it back into my coffee filter, which I can remove one at a time, and pour the powder back into the jar. Now, everybody always asks me, what is that container your coffee filters are in? Cool Whip. It is a Cool Whip container. It fits perfectly, so you should probably run out and get yourself some Cool Whip. Maybe some strawberries to go with it. Okay, then you'll have it for embossing. I think you need it. Yeah. Okay, so now I am repositioning the stencil, covering up what I already did, and putting the openings of these diamonds staggered from where they already were, so it's going to let me double stencil. Now, you could do this with a lot of different stencils, and you could even overlap things, but this stencil is really fun that it enables you with one stencil to get multiple colors. So I did that poppin' yellow. There you can see when I turn it, I've got those flecks of gold and white in with my colored powder. Okay, background number 3, we're going to emboss on some tape. This is just some double stick tape. I am not measuring this at all. Sometimes I do better when I eyeball things, but if you felt the need to measure, use a ruler, something, do that. Whatever works best for you. And then I just trimmed off the edges and sprinkled on that poppin' blue powder. Now, I forgot to use an anti-static powder tool, so I do have a bit of stray powder, but it's really hard to see unless you're looking really super close. So I thought this was so fun to have the stripes on there just like that. So here's all 3 of the gorgeous backgrounds that I made. I picked out some coordinating cardstock and die cut circles for each of these, and I decided to use this old school notes from Spellbinders. It's their clear stamp of the month on my cards today. And for card number 1, I will show you the stamping. I did the same exact stamping for all 3 of the cards. I'm using some VersaFine Onyx black ink and stamping this onto some Bristol smooth paper. Because I'm going to be coloring it with some brush pens from Arteza. I love these pens. They work really good on Bristol Smooth, but I also have to say, WoW has some ultra smooth paper, which I did my backgrounds on. It's great paper, and now I'm wondering, could I use my Real Brush pens on the WoW cardstock too? I have to go try that now. So I double stamped this with that VersaFine ink because I wanted to emboss this with clear powder. I'm trying out several of the like quote unquote basic powders from WoW today in these cards as well. So the clear worked really good. Now I have my Real Brush pens, and I'm going to show you a couple ways I like to color with these. So you can see I didn't fill in the entire image, and I'm bringing in a water brush to blend that out to get a really nice soft look. This is probably my favorite way to use the pens. And then for the next one, I'm going to use 2 shades of yellow, adding my darkest one on first in the center of this flower, and then I'll use the lighter one to blend that out to the edge. These brushes come to such a fine point, the tip is really more like a paintbrush, so you kind of get a watercolory-like look. For the typewriter, I'm going to use some turquoise colors to try and match that poppin' blue powder. I thought it would be fun to have all different colors of typewriters. I think that is my favorite thing about this set, is just coloring them in all different ways. So I am doing the blending technique and the water brush technique on this typewriter, just mixing and matching that. So I kind of have 2 tones of colors going on. I also brought in a gray marker on this typewriter, but the part that I colored is not going to show on the finished card, that back piece, but I did put it on that little lever on the left there. All right, so this die for this stamp set actually is going to cut a slit in the typewriter so that we can have a little piece of paper come out of it, which by the way is this black piece I'm using. There's a die for it. You can see it right there on the right hand side of the screen. And I'm stamping one of the sentiments from this set onto black paper with that same WoW embossing ink, and I'm going to emboss this one with white. This is one of the things I like to do the most, black paper with white embossing powder. I have a very fine sentiment here, and the embossing powder did great. I did have a little excess that I ended up scraping off with my like X-Acto knife around the eye, but it worked really well. So there's my typewriter with its little note, and then I'm going to stick this down to the circle with some foam squares because I love dimension, gotta have it. And then this is going to go on the side of my card so that circle hangs off just a tiny bit, and I'll trim off the excess. I'm going to put some of these flowers around the bottom of the typewriter. I'll put some behind and some on top, and it's just like a really nice flourish to the design. So pretty. All right, now I am going to put this down onto my card base, which is an A2 size. So it is 11 inches by 4 1/4 scored at 5 1/2. So it's a top folding card. I'm embellishing this with some black licorice jelly hearts from Trinity Stamps. I love their embellishments, and the black is just perfect on this card. That pop of black really helps those bright colors stand out in my background. I had one more flower left, and I thought I would just put it towards the bottom of the card, but I had to figure out which way I wanted it to go, and it looks really fun just there in the corner balancing out the card. All right, let's move on to card number 2. You can see I've already colored out my images. I used the same exact markers. I just made a yellow typewriter this time and did pink and yellow flowers because those are the colors in my card. For my sentiment that's going to go in my typewriter, I stamped with that clear ink and embossed it with the black powder, and now I have Be Bold or Italic. Never regular. That's fun. I also have a strip here of some black glitter paper, also from Arteza. I love this glitter paper. It's a huge pack of black and white, so I've been using it a lot lately. For this typewriter, I'm going to put the flowers kind of popping up from behind the paper, and I think that's a really cool look you can do with this stamp set too. And I love just doing the 2 colors on a card. I think it's, you know, it's really matchy. I love that. But then we have the pop of the black too, which I think, like I said, goes so good with these bright colors. Again, I have a top folding card, and then to bring out more of the gold in the background, I brought in these gold half back little baubles or pearls, and putting those in and around the top of my card adds that little extra something. That's what embellishments are for, right? You gotta have the little extras in there. All right, so that is card number 2. Let's move on to card number 3. Now we're going to kind of like a monochromatic card, like it's all teal, but I've got my neutrals, which in this case is going to be gold and I guess black, we could say. So I am stamping one of the sentiments from this set. I think it says you push all the right buttons, I think, and I'm using a gold ink pad. I'm not trying to get it so you can perfectly read it, and I'm not trying to get it straight. Some of it overlaps. Like, it's just a fun background with a little touch of shimmer. I'm going to set that aside to dry and stamp my sentiment. I'm using black cardstock again, the clear embossing ink, and gold powder. Yeah, this is a happy birthday sentiment. It says happy birthday to the most amazing person. And you can see I have a lot of anti-static powder there. You can just wipe that off when it's cooled with a cloth, or like a dry baby wipe works good. And now this little heart is from the stamp set. I kind of feel like it looks like one of those heart paper clips, and I stamped that as my embellishment for this card. But don't worry, I am going to bring in another kind of embellishment. So this is going to be popped up onto the card, this time putting the foam squares on the back of the circle and gluing the typewriter to the circle. So here's another top folding card for this card front. Isn't that so cool with those embossed stripes? Okay, so here's where I was like, I might be crazy, because I brought in my black Nouveau drops to fill in each of the typewriter keys to make them black. Now, could you use a black marker? Yes, it would be so much safer. But I just thought this would be so fun to have them be raised up and shiny. I was really excited that it turned out as good as it did, and I was able to like do it. Although when I went to take a picture of it, it wasn't quite dry. I did like smear one of the keys a tiny bit, but we won't tell anyone. Our secret, right? Here you can see the cards up close. I am so pleased with how these turned out. I thought the backgrounds really came out great, and then just playing with that stamp set was a lot of fun. And really, you could make these backgrounds and use so many different stamp sets. They're just fun to have these really unique powders shine in these backgrounds. So thank you for stopping by. I will have a link to the WOW shop for you, whether you're in the United States or in the UK, down below. And I will see you all again very soon on the next video, so feel free to subscribe if you're new here. I will see you then. Happy stamping! Bye!